Hi everyone, my name is Samantha Mui and I'm so excited to be your author spotlight. So I'm going to introduce to you my latest cookbook, Melting Pot. Melting Pot has 11 personal short stories as well as 66 recipes. But before I get into my book, I would really like to share with you some of the inspiration when it came to writing Melting Pot. And it all started when I was just a child. Food was at the center of everything in my life. I always say there are two types of people. There are people who plan their activities around food, and there are those who plan their food around their activities. And in my case, my family planned food around everything. In this book, what you'll find is there's a lot of stories about the women in my life and how they cook, and also the stories, this common thread of how food was always this part of this journey for myself. Another thing I wanted to share with you when it came to writing my book is that this was also inspired a lot from my childhood experience. So ever since I was little, I would go to the bookstores and I would read a ton of books. I would grab a bunch of books that had picture books of food images and anything that had to do with food, anything that described food, that had photos of food, anything. I just loved it. I loved learning about the outside world through food. Another thing was when I was a child, I was bullied a lot. And because I was bullied, I would try to stay home a lot. And I would fake sick to my family so that I could stay all day at home. I would watch marathons of cooking shows. And I would actually try to attempt to make these random recipes in my kitchen and basically clean up the kitchen before anybody got back. So the kitchen became a refuge for me in many ways. So another thing I want to share with you about Melting Pot is I want to share with you a quick excerpt in my book. So let me grab, this is from my first chapter of my book, and you can see these are some of the images you can find. And I want to add that I'm very excited that each 66 recipe actually has a photo. So you can see kind of how it's supposed to look before you cook it, and you can kind of see if you're doing it correctly, which I'm very excited about. Okay, so let me share with you the first chapter. And the first chapter is about my mother, which is really ironic because I just shared that my whole family loves food. And my mom has a really unique perspective on how she thinks about food. And in fact, once I read this to you, you'll see the irony of what I'm about to talk about. And so the first chapter opens up, it's called One Pot Wonder. I also want to add that each chapter, there are 6 recipes that follow. So whatever story I write about, there's 6 recipes that actually relate back to the stories. So let me go ahead and read the first chapter for you. This is One Pot Wonder. There's a word in Cantonese called way sick, which basically describes a person who is always hungry and looking for something to eat. I have fit that description since I came out of my mother's womb at 9 pounds 4 ounces, eating 6 meals a day as a child. Far from being a picky eater with a grimace on my face, I awaited meals with utensils in hand. I look forward to what I might munch on between meals. My mother, however, is the opposite of way sick. She eats primarily for nourishment, not enjoyment. Not only is she an abstemious eater, cooking is a mundane chore for her. When I was a child, she stuck to a small sample of staple foods that require little effort to prepare. This presented a problem for her way sick daughter. Upon opening the fridge looking for a treat, I could be sure to find cabbage, carrots, minced pork, thawing chicken drumsticks, and something no Chinese kitchen would be complete without: ginger. I never knew what would be served at the dinner table, as my mom's go-to dishes were an assortment of ingredients she chopped and tossed into a hot pot or a wok until it looked ready. We never knew what to expect in Mom's One Pot Wonders, only their frequencies. These dinners taught me a few things at a young age. I could expect the unexpected. There's only one way to prepare chicken, and I needed more options. My mother now jokes that I should thank her for her One Pot Wonders. If it hadn't been for these surprise stews, my passion for cooking may have never been ignited, proving just how waist-sick I actually was. The recipes that follow remind me of my mom's cooking style. So, this is from chapter 1, and I'm just going to go ahead and flip through the One Pot Wonder recipes. So the first one is soy sauce eggs, garlic bok choy, hoppa fried rice, and this one's really interesting because you can actually use any types of leftover meats you have in your fridge. I got chicken and rice, and this is the Hainanese style, so you can see. Mama's oxtail, sweet red bean soup, and that is conclusive of our first One Pot Wonder chapter. And so one of the things that I really enjoyed making when it came to making melting pot is that there were a bunch of recipes that are like traditional recipes, but I would either try to figure out ways to shortcut the recipe, or I would try to take it on a classic twist. For example, this cover of melting pot is actually made with convenience ramen noodles that most people didn't realize. But my grandmother's story was really interesting because she would use a lot of convenience food with fresh ingredients, and you could hear about that story in the chapter Scrappy. So I hope that I gave you a quick preview of all the different foods or stories that you should be expecting if you were to purchase melting pot. And I'm so excited, and let me know if you have any questions. I would love to connect with you at our event.